trying to be all that you want of me. But it's so cold now, it's so dark here. What could I do? It's not very clear.
Shine a little light, show us the way, lead us to a brighter day. Shine a little light, show us the way, lead us to a brighter day.
If I'm a little light, you're a little light. Together we are so very bright. A little light here,
a little light there. See the smiles, it's so very clear.
shine a little light, show us the way.
Good evening and welcome to the special evening of hope, courage, and resilience. I am Rachel Jacobs, and I am the Rebbitzin of Singers Hill Shul in Birmingham. For nearly 2,000 years, one theme has been the focus of the aspirations and the prayers of the Jewish people in all parts of the world, our yearning for the gathering of all Jews and our return to Jerusalem with Mashiach, who will rebuild the third temple and end the exile and the pain and the suffering which it has brought. In ancient times, whilst the Jews inhabited the lands of Israel, the temple was the dominant and central feature of Jewish life. It possessed a magnificence we can only begin to imagine when we contemplate the immense stones of the western wall, the remnant of the outer wall of the Temple Mount. But the Torah has given us the strength and the power to survive long after the great powers that overcame us have crumbled, disappeared, and been long forgotten. Yet each year, we still mourn our loss on Tisha B'Av with fasting and lamentation, because we have never forgotten what we once had, and we have never forgotten God's promise that one day it will be rebuilt. Tonight, I have the privilege of welcoming a woman of hope, a wife, a mother, a daughter, a sister, a Rebbitzin and friend, an inspirational woman who has taught the world that the very same God who demands of us to overcome life's greatest tests, trials, hardships, and tribulations also gave us the strength to partner with him and dig deeper and make the world a brighter place. Dina Hurwitz is the Chabad Rebbitzin to Rabbi Yitzi, an inspirational writer and spiritual guide who was diagnosed with ALS in 2013. Dina is a motivational speaker and a world-renowned personality who continually writes and speaks on the subject of harnessing strength and spirit in the face of coping with challenge. Dina, you inspire us all. You brighten this world, and together with your husband, Rabbi Yitzi, you live by the words of the song we just heard. For both you shine the light, you show us the way, and you lead us to a brighter way. It gives me great pleasure to invite you to speak to us tonight.
Thank you. This is exciting. I'm in so many living rooms, and you're in my living room, so thank you for that. Just want to get a better view there. So I'm going to share with you a little bit of our story, and I want to share a lot of lessons that we've learned and coping mechanisms that we've picked up and tips to help us, because we all need a little help from time to time. My name is Dina. I grew up the daughter of Chabad Shluchim in California. It was my dream when I grow up to have my own Chabad house. And my husband is from Brooklyn, from Crown Heights. And I rescued him, brought him out of Crown Heights to California. And it was really a dream of ours to take our beautiful traditions, our heritage, our religion, and to share it with people who had not had the fortune of learning it when they were younger. So this brought us first to Boulder, Colorado for a year, and then to this area in California called Temecula. Now, I grew up about an hour and 20 minutes out of Temecula, and I never heard of it. It was a small hick town. When we moved there in 1999, there was about 40,000 people. There was one red light at that time. And we moved there with 2 children, and we had a synagogue in our home for a long time. Eventually, we moved to a storefront. It's a very, very nice community. Hardworking Americans live there, very middle-class area. We had pretty much our dream. I mean, obviously, I think everybody knows that there are stresses that come up, financial stresses, some other stresses, but we were living a life that we felt was very worthwhile. We found value in our life and everything. The economy at a certain point in the United States fell drastically, and Yitzi had to find another couple of ways to supplement income for his family. So in the years before he got sick, he was working 3 different jobs. One of them was a chaplain in a state mental facility for the criminally insane. And one of them was he would oversee the kosher supervision at a dairy farm, which meant that he slept in his car 4 nights a week, and he would wake up every hour and check and make sure everything was kosher. And it wasn't per se an easy life, but we were able to take care of our family at that point of 7 children. And Yitzi has this incredible attitude. No matter what he's doing, he finds a way to be joyful about it, and he finds a way to approach it with his entire being. So, you know, the time that he spent at the farm, he would prepare for his classes, he would speak on the phone, he would take care of the financial aspects of running a Chabad house, and sometimes he would play guitar to the cows as well. I mean, he's just such a happy, talented man, and he used this time so wonderfully. Shortly after Yitzi turned 40, though, his body seemed to catch up with him a little bit, and he started to experience some uncomfortable symptoms. His words would sometimes get jumbled. So I thought perhaps he's exhausted, because he really works around the clock all week long, and told him that perhaps we need to give up some hours and you come home and sleep in bed a couple nights a week. And in the beginning, that really helped us out, but it seemed to work. And then the symptoms came back, and then we started to see doctors. And it took us a long time to find the diagnosis. It took us actually until his 41st birthday. On the day of his birthday, he was officially diagnosed with ALS. Now, in this time period of him noticing symptoms to having his diagnosis, there was a lot of what they call it progress, when a disease progresses, but I guess it's the opposite of progress. And his words started to slur a little bit, and his emotions, it's the form of ALS that he has is called bulbar onset. So it starts at the top of the spine in the head, and that affects the emotions. So when somebody is sad, they just cry, and when somebody is happy, they can't stop laughing. And the kids thought that was hysterical. They would, like on Hanukkah, before he was officially diagnosed, they realized they could make him laugh and he can't stop. And they thought, this is so funny. And so like just saying the bracha on the menorah took like 20 minutes. And for me, like it was devastating. And it was so interesting for me to see, like, laughter can be devastating, right? They think it's so funny, and here I think it's so devastating. But it was like obviously a challenging time. And for me, the biggest fear that it was working up to was getting that official diagnosis, that I was going to have this conversation with my children and tell them that their father is sick. And this was really weighing very heavily on me, as it would any parent, I believe. And I spoke to wonderful people from High Lifeline who advised me on how to go about having this conversation. And I was really like struggling, like, how do you have one conversation with children and end their childhood just like that? Pull the floor out from underneath their feet. Like, how on earth is that going to happen? the day that he was diagnosed, as I said, was his birthday. So there's two things happening at that time. We're driving home. It was about an hour and a half from the clinic. And he has this birthday get together that he planned. And I have this conversation with the kids that I was worried about. So I asked him if he wanted to cancel the birthday get together. And he looked at me like I was crazy, right? And I told him, I said, look, that's fine if you want to do it. I just want you to know I can't help you with it. Like, I gotta prepare, because tomorrow morning we're having this talk with the kids. And I had a lot of, pacing to do in the living room. And so he said, no problem. And he went to the Chabad house and he set up for this birthday get together that we thought would have like maybe 20 people, 20 men there. We lived in a really secluded place. Our older kids at that point, I have my kids divided into the older and the younger, because there's like 3 years difference between one batch and the next batch. So my older kids were 15, 14, 12, and 11. And those kids were going to school in Los Angeles and coming home every Shabbos at that point. Los Angeles was 2-hour drive from Temecula. And the younger kids were 6, 7, and 8, and they were going to school in San Diego. And I would drive them back and forth every day. I'm not sure, like kilometers, how it would work. It's 50 miles each way, which makes it back and forth like 200 miles a day. In other words, we were in the car a lot. It was a long schlep to take them to school. So we have the big kids coming home from LA to have this big discussion, and we are so isolated. So I thought, we have like our close group of friends from San Diego. Perhaps they would come to this birthday get together for Yitzi. Actually, there ended up being like 350 fellow Chabad rabbis came to this. They heard that that Yitzi was sick, and they thought that they would come and kind of console him and help lift his spirits. And till this day, I get messages from people that were there that they were so shocked, because when they came in, there was this person who was so sure that he is exactly where God needs him to be for whatever reason. God needs me to be here, and with the more energy and the more vitality I bring to this, perhaps the quicker a cure will be discovered, or God won't need me in this position anymore. For now, he needs me here, and I'm going to give it my everything. Which is actually, like, obviously it's super beautiful, but like for me personally, I was kind of falling apart, and it was a little hard for me to see. Like, it was wonderful for me to see, but also like, okay, so I'm not going to bring him my sadness right now. I'm just going to keep it to myself. So he had this wonderful farbrengen, and then the next day we had these really difficult discussions with the kids. And I divided them again into my older kids and younger kids. Now for me, honesty is super important. Everybody has their values that they kind of really, really live by. And it was important to me that my kids could trust me. And even if they were going to ask questions that were going to devastate me, I wanted them to know that they could ask me the questions, and I'm going to be honest with them. So I had to start from the very beginning, being very honest with the kids. The little kids, I told them very simply, I know that you've noticed that Tati's voice is different, and that sometimes he laughs a lot. And this is because, he's sick, and he has a disease that's called ALS. And right now there is no cure for it. And the doctors tell me that his body is going to get very weak. And now, again, these were babies I was talking to, 6, 7, and 8 years old. I said, but we are going to be together as a family. And we have Hashem with us, and we have the Rebbe with us, and we are going to figure this out. The doctors can tell us what the diagnosis is, but only Hashem knows what is going to happen. Now, the older kids, was a much harder discussion. The older kids asked about the disease and the lifespan for somebody with this kind of ALS is 2 years from the onset of symptoms, and we were a good 1.5 years into that. It didn't look good for us. I gave the kids a couple of guidelines at that time. I told them, right now, we don't have to figure out the rest of our lives. We are going to take it one moment at a time, one foot in front of the other. And maybe we'll get to a place where we can plan a few days in advance, or maybe a week or a month in advance. But for right now, we're just every day going to just get through that day. The other thing I told them was, you're going to be experiencing so many different emotions. You might be scared. You might be angry. You might be disappointed. You might be happy sometimes, you might be just very disillusioned. It's all fine. Whatever you feel is fine. The one thing that is not okay is to use this as an excuse to ruin your life. Talking to a bunch of like pre-adolescents over there. They hardly need an excuse sometimes, but a good reminder that just whatever you feel is really, it's okay to be afraid. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to be happy. It's okay to be. And I wanted them to know that they have permission for that. And the third thing, I said, please don't Google it. So they asked me why. And I told them, my husband, as I said, is from Brooklyn, which makes him a baseball fan and a Yankees fan. And one of the most famous Yankees is Lou Gehrig. And this ALS is also called Lou Gehrig's disease. I know in some other countries it's called motor neuron disease. I'm not sure how you refer to it in England. And Lou Gehrig was a very famous Yankee. And he actually died 50 years before, at least 50 years before Yitzi was diagnosed. And in that time, they had found nothing. Thankfully, there's a few promising things that have come up in the last couple of years. Nothing concrete yet, but promising nonetheless. And I told them, you're going to go online and you're going to see everybody who has had the disease and died from it. And you don't need to see that. And the people who, and the doctors writing the articles, they don't know your father and his spirit. They do not understand his joy and his faith in God. They don't understand our God. And they have definitely never met our Rebbe. And you don't need that in your life. So obviously there was a lot of tears that night. And the next morning I wake up to get my little ones ready for school in San Diego. And I go into the kitchen to make sandwiches for them. And my two little boys, my 11 and 12-year-old, are deep in discussion at the kitchen table. And they look up at me when I walk in. And one of them says to me, Mom, are you telling us that he's going to die? And I was just so devastated by that, kind of kicking myself for making that promise to be honest with them. Right? And I said to them, this is the diagnosis that he has and the medical norm, so to speak. But nobody knows somebody else's timeline. Nobody but Hashem knows that. And we are not going to live our life assuming there's a miracle coming next, any second to save us. But we are going to be open to the fact that it could happen. Hashem can do anything. And then I have to make peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, right? And my hands are shaking and my heart is trembling and tears are pouring down my face. And my one son says to me, he says, Mom, just one step at a time, one foot in front of the other. This was a really interesting time for us because on one hand, the medical changes didn't happen overnight, although they did happen over a year. Within the next year and a half, he was completely paralyzed and had to be put on life support. So that is somewhat rapid changes, and every month there was another change, but it wasn't overnight yet. The future of our family changed overnight. All the dreams that we had that were never going to happen. This is actually something that's quite painful. And I know to a different level, during this period of Corona, everybody had dreams that they were going to do. Some people had saved up their whole life for a cruise this month or whatever it is, or their kid's wedding, bar mitzvah, and everything got changed. And it's hard to deal with that kind of change. It's hard to imagine something that you dreamed of that's going to be so different than anything you could imagine. And here, I got married at 21. Within the next 10 years, had 7 kids. Like, we survived on this kind of dream about like how much fun we were going to have when the kids grew up and moved out of the house, right? Because that's when we were going to start living. Because we were just like, you know, busy taking care of our family. As a matter of fact, just before he got his diagnosis, I had got us lessons in rock climbing. You know, just something interesting to do, the two of us. And of course, we never ended up doing that. And there was a lot that we were going to never end up doing. And there was a lot of dreams that were just never going to happen. And that was a very painful thing for our family to go through, as I'm sure it is for everybody. The loss of a job, the loss of a friendship, the loss of a marriage, the loss of a person. These are all like dreams that we had that aren't going to happen, which are very painful. On the other hand, we were completely swept up with this unbelievable wave of love that we received from the Chabad community specifically, but the Jewish community in general, and even our Temecula community, Jewish and not Jewish. It was really like almost like a high. And every day, something amazing and something beautiful, and letters from like the Walmart greeter. I don't know if you have Walmart in England. Kind of like Target, perhaps one step lower than Target, sent us a letter of how my husband used to always greet him so nicely and ask him how he's doing. He was like a retired military man. And just beautiful shows of support, people making dinner for the family, people just bringing over flowers, people doing a lot of mitzvahs in Yitzi's honor. It was really like kind of like a high. So at certain points we felt like completely, I don't know, bipolar maybe, because we had these crazy highs and then these horrible lows, these fears and everything. And it was just like this roller coaster that we were on in the beginning. And Yitzi's speech his speech was the first to go before his body became weak. And his speech, his ability to sing and to daven and to kiss the kids. And at this point we realized our little city of Temecula cannot afford 2 rabbis. So we had to bring another rabbi out there, and we decided to move to Los Angeles. Los Angeles was, for me, the least traumatic move for my children because it meant 4 of them did not have to switch schools. So we moved here to Los Angeles, and everything changed at that time. You know, we went from being the rabbi and rebbitzin of a small synagogue, very connected to the people in our synagogue, and we knew like basically what our job was, to a community full of rabbis and rebbitzins. And my husband is the really outgoing one of the 2 of us. He is just such a people person, and he loves speaking. He can talk to anybody. You know, he's just such a great communicator. He's so full of energy and joy, and all of a sudden he's not full of energy. He's still full of joy, but it doesn't express itself in the energetic way that it used to. And he can't speak, and I have to be the one to speak for him. And I'm not good with speaking. That's not my thing. That's my biggest fear, actually. So in the beginning, when we were still in Temecula, he'd be up there on Shabbos giving a speech in the synagogue. And in middle, his voice would just stop working because he was just too tired. And I would have to get up there and finish his speech for him, which presented a couple of problems. I mean, we had our small community. It was like in front of 25 people. It shouldn't be too devastating, but I'm not really comfortable in front of people. I wasn't at that point. And also, I didn't even know what he was going to say because he didn't like prepare his speeches with me. So I had to wing it completely, which was probably amusing for some people who weren't busy being devastated at watching their beloved rabbi kind of deteriorate in front of their faces. So this change was very drastic for us. Every month there was another loss. First, his left side got, sorry, excuse me. His left side got weak, and then his right side got weak. Just one second here. It says I'm going back to bed after this. My kids got me that. And obviously it's coffee. It's still morning for us, or midday for us over here. So with all of these losses, Yitzi would turn to me with like a little shy smile and say, okay, so this isn't working. Now what are we going to do? And I in turn would fall apart each time. And I would feel so guilty that I wasn't happier last month when we had it a little easier. And I would feel so fearful that next month it's going to be even harder. It was a very, very challenging year. And when I said Yitzi would say it, what I mean is he had one finger that worked, and he would type on his iPhone. And he created, like on your iPhone, there's a speech button. I don't know whoever here is good with iPhones. You can also choose your voice. So Yitzi created, his voice was a male voice with a Scottish accent, because that's his favorite. So he spoke to me in a Scottish accent for a while. That was fun. And for a while, Yitzi would write all of his Devar Torahs with one thumb, you know. And actually, like, it seemed torturous until that wasn't possible anymore. And then we had to move to the next. And that was even harder. So Yitzi is just a great communicator and teacher, but he was not a great writer. The longest letter he had ever written to me was on a business card. this big. That was the longest letter he ever wrote to me. And now he's a writer, because it's his way of communicating. And pretty much every Thursday for the next 6 years, Yitzi would write a Devar Torah on the Parsha, if he could. And once a year, he would write marriage advice for men in honor of Tu B'Av, which is coming up next week. And then 6 years ago, the day after Rosh Hashanah, Yitzi was rushed to the hospital with pneumonia. And at that point, he had to have a trach. He had to be connected through a tube to a ventilator. And really, like, at that point, most of the trauma of change stopped. And he has been pretty much stable since then. But the loss at that point was huge. And it took a while, for his body to get used to being on a ventilator, because most of us who have ever experienced any sort of pain or anxiety or anything know that in order to calm ourselves down, we just take a deep breath. And to not be able to take a deep breath is even panic inducing. So it took a few months for his body to get used to that. And then things started to change differently. We moved next door to a boys' school, which to me was a little bit challenging, a very little privacy over here. And that boys' school started coming over and making a synagogue, a shul in our home. Actually, I'm just gonna move this for a second. I'm sitting inside the shul, which is no longer a shul during Corona, but over there you see, that's where we have two small Torahs actually in our living room, and underneath in the big cabinet is all the folding chairs. We have a little shul in our home. One of the 11th grade learns in Yitzi's room Monday through Thursday. They have a Gemara class, a Talmud class in his room. Many of the students and teachers come like 2 at a time and learn with him or counsel with him. There's a lot of music in that room. In this, well, part of this room. Right behind me is Yitzi's room. I don't really have a lot of privacy in my home, so I shut the doors to his room so that we don't hear his machines while we're talking. So this process was all in the beginning a lot of loss, and I have to say I couldn't find my balance at that time. In the time since then, there are times where I feel like more stable and times where I feel like the world is collapsing on me all over again. And I think this is normal for everybody. We all go through cycles where we feel like we're handling our life better, and other times where we feel like, okay, I'm just falling into this endless pit, and good luck to everybody around me, right? And I think that this is important for us. You know, we pick up tools along the way of our lives, thanks to friends and to books, but also thanks to ourselves. And when we're doing well, we hardly need to look for tools to survive. When we're not doing well is when we're going to have to dig deep within us, and we're going to have to find some strengths that we were not aware of, and something to help us get out of this rut that we're in. And sometimes this is going to be as simple as like, let's say, playing a game of football or buying new shoes or lipstick. And sometimes the idea that something like that is going to make a difference makes us both want to laugh and cry at the same time. And you're going to have to do some like deep meditating or walking in nature or something that brings you peace. And the thing is, the same thing doesn't work each time, because I strongly believe Hashem wants us to keep learning and to keep growing. And if we didn't have to, we wouldn't, because it's not comfortable. It's terrifying. But only when we have to are we able to grow. Yet, I strongly think that we can learn from each other tools to help us along the way. And this is many times referred to as resilience. And sometimes you know you're resilient, and sometimes you feel anything but resilient. And I do believe it's okay to take time in your life to be sad. And I believe that Hashem gives us permission for this. He gave us the 9 days and told us, I want you in general to be a happy people. I want you to live. I want you to serve me with joy. I want you to thrive and flourish and sing and dance and dream about your future and dream about how beautiful it is. Yet there are things in our lives that are painful, and I don't want you to ignore it. I want you to take a specific amount of time and mourn those things. But know that this time is not endless. Like I have said it myself, and I've heard so many people telling me the same thing. I'm afraid to start crying because I'll never stop. And this is actually like, it doesn't work that way. We do stop, and we need to cry. We need to acknowledge that not everything is perfect. And we don't always have to say, yes, but it could be worse. Of course it could be worse, but it could be better. It could be so much better. And I don't think denying reality is a virtue that we need to have. I think that certain realities we wouldn't think to deny, right? Like when somebody is on their deathbed, if you refuse to be sad or affected by it, people worry about you, right? But grief is different. Grief doesn't have that kind of timeline. And something can come up 5 years later to make you cry. And it's nobody's job to tell you you're not handling it well. But we have to, I think that's why it's important that we take these 9 days. And Hashem tells us there's 9 of them. This is the time that you're supposed to acknowledge the hurt, the pain, the loss. But know that when these days are over is the time for consoling. It's gonna get better. It's going to be different. It's not an indefinite amount of tears. Once you start, you'll never stop. We're going to start, we're going to cry, and then we're going to rejoice, and we're going to be happy, and we're going to dance again. And I think this is really important. This is in Torah, we have guidelines for being sad. And if we ignore these guidelines, if we think, you know what, these are uncomfortable days for me, so I'm going to just tune it out, read some good books, watch some good movies, be on social media all day. I'm just going to try to bypass the sad. Well, guess what? The sad is going to come up in the middle of the happy then. I think it's important that we deal with our emotions in their time, because that's the right time to deal with it. But again, I do want to share with you some tools that I have found for resilience perspective. I think when we are able to change our perspective, we are able to almost change the situation. The way we view the situation is really the only thing in our control. So the first thing is I want everybody to acknowledge how lucky we are that every single morning starts a new day. We lay down at night and we rest. And today was hard, right? And if we're lucky, tomorrow is only going to be this hard. Sometimes that's what I say to myself, right? You know, our days today are different in isolation. We've been quite isolated, my family over here. We have to be really, really careful because of Yitzi. On any other day pre-corona, my average day would seem kind of like a waste of time, you know, doing things that I would never do at the end of the day when I see all the things that I've accomplished. Now, taking a shower is on my list of accomplishments, right? Like it never was before, but you know, things are different now. And I think it's important when you go through changes in your life, you don't factor in all of the days of your life to make an average for whether today was a good day or a bad day. These are Corona days. Like, honestly, like, the way Yitzi is now was my biggest nightmare a few years ago. I couldn't even fathom that is a possibility. And that's my everyday, no trauma, no extra trauma day today. Like, our averages do have to change, yet we have to be aware. Every night we get to lay down and rest, and tomorrow starts a new day. We have a chance at a new attitude. We have a chance for some new chances. We have, it's different. Today is going to be different than yesterday. And it's up to us to take advantage of that or to not take advantage of that. Sometimes in the trauma of your life, one night's rest is not enough. And if you have the ability to run away for a couple of days once in a while and rest even more and only take care of yourself or be in a place where you find peaceful, then, take that opportunity as well. For this year, for my birthday, my husband got me 3 nights in the mountains. I haven't done it yet. But like, he knows that, like, I just need to rest and not take care of anybody, as well as a ticket for me and a friend to go parasailing, which haven't done that yet either. I have to find a friend who's not afraid of heights, but both things to, like, continue living and also to recharge. I think the recharge is very important for us. Another thing is, it's not good to compare ourselves to other people. It's not good to compare your trauma to somebody else's trauma, because it's not really helpful. God gives us each challenges that are very painful for us. It sometimes gives us good perspective to see somebody else out there who is doing well and they seem to have it worse than us. Sometimes that gives us a good push. But if it's making you guilty, throw it out. It's not helping. Don't feel guilty about it. Don't compare yourselves to other people, as well as acknowledge that everybody has pain. So asking yourself, why me, is not really a valid question, because everybody is in the why me situation at some point in their life. When Mashiach comes, it will be a time where we won't have pain and we won't have sickness, and we'll cease to have to ask that question. But until then, nobody really gets to escape the hardships of this world. If you're alive, chances are you've got pain in your life. The third thing is, we can ask ourselves, like, is what I'm doing helping me or hurting me? Sometimes we like to get stuck in the memories. Go through old videos and old picture books of the pre-ALS days and all the vitality and all the joy. Is that helping me? Now, again, I'm not going to pretend it doesn't exist, but is that going to help me on a day like today? Probably not. So I'm going to stay away from that. Different habits that we have, eating chocolate, which again goes back to the, like, thank God every day is a new day, because how many days have we decided, well, today I'm going to start my new diet and I'm going to do some exercise, right? So luckily we get that every day as well, but we really should ask ourselves, is this going to help us or is this going to hurt us? There is another great tool that some people have, which is humor. Some people seem to have it better than others. My kids have a very kind of dark sense of humor, which helps them deal with the really difficult challenges of our life. One of my daughters is in camp now, and one of her best friends lost her father. So there's this song called Beggar Woman. It's a beautiful song. It's a Jewish song, but it goes, God loves the widow, the orphan, and the blind. I'm not sure if any of you have heard this. The old and the sickly who haven't got a dime. So when they say the orphan, my daughter's friend cheers. And when they say the sickly, my daughter cheers. And they think it's hysterical. And the rest of their bunk thinks that they're delusional. But these things help them, like, it helps to be able to laugh a little bit about your situation. If you have funny people in your life, keep them there. They're really important. If you're a funny person, I guess we should be worried when we stop telling jokes. That's that is a big sign that our hearts are very sad. Now, having friends is also incredibly important. Surrounding yourself with people that make you feel cherished and loved and understood. I know for myself, like we have nurses that help take care of Yitzi. And there have been years where I was the nurse, sometimes for 16 hours a day, 5-7 days a week through the night. And I felt like so strange to complain about the same thing to my friends for like 4 years in a row, right? Like, fix it already, right? But this isn't something in my control. And thankfully, my friends just allow me to complain without trying to fix it for me, and just allow me to cry with them, as well as the people, some incredible people that we've met that have offered to help in that situation. I do want to tell you that I'm not romanticizing this life. I'm not going to tell you that it's easy, that it's wonderful, that we always handle it well. But I am going to tell you that we try our best to do right by our kids and for each other. And I think that that's all that we can do, right? And everybody has got their ups and their downs. And one thing that I have learned, you know, in general, I think women tend to be very harsh on themselves. And often, like, the most negative voice you're ever going to hear in your head is your own. And I've learned a lot of compassion for other people, but also compassion for myself. And it's really important that we speak to ourselves nicely, specifically when we're going through challenging times, because we don't have to make it worse than it already is. And in general, like, there have been days where something has happened and I say to myself, oh my gosh, how am I ever going to live through this, right? And I think that this is important. We tell ourselves stories, but we don't have to add to the stories. Like, I'm learning now to say, this is really hard, and not add all this drama to it. Oh my gosh, how am I going to live through this? Or I can't take this another day. Or just the stories that we tell each other, tell ourselves, they matter. So we should stop adding to our own stress by telling ourselves these hugely overwhelming stories. Yes, it is difficult today. And yes, this is a challenge that I didn't see, but I'm not going to make it worse for myself than necessary. Recently, due to my isolation, I've taken to writing a couple of things here and there on social media. And I do want to share, I believe, one more thing, and then if we have some questions, I believe. This is a term in America that I tend to shy away from because it's so blown out of proportion. It's called microaggressions. You know, like now, anytime you say something that offends somebody, it's called a microaggression. I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about offending people, but I do think that we don't always say things that are helpful to people. And I do think that we need to be a little bit more careful with what we say to somebody who is currently living through a trauma. And of course, these are also things that to say to ourselves when we are living through a trauma. I firmly believe that everybody around me deserves to live without guilt. And I don't want you to not tell me about the wonderful vacations that you're taking, or the date you went on with your husband, or whatever it is. I don't want you to have to censor your joy because of me. But there is a certain sensitivity that we should just be aware of saying certain things. Like, I know that I would go out in public, like to an event, and I would get all these very well-meaning hugs. You're so brave to come out alone. And all I heard was, you're so alone. That's all I heard. You're so alone. And countless well-meaning people. And I would actually just like be able to take it for about 10 minutes and then run home crying. You know, I don't know if I run home crying anymore, but what I do is I have limited before Corona, the amount of socializing that I'm able to do, because it's hard for me to be around normal people. It's hard for me to hear those conversations. It's not the joy of your life, it's the complaints of your life that is hard for me to hear, right? So complaining that it was, you know, hard to find a babysitter to go on a date with your husband is a hard one for me to hear, right? So like, I do think that, so I don't want people to not be able to just speak freely. So I limit where I go, because I know for myself, it's a little hard for me to hear that. I do think we should be aware of what other people are going through, and we should know that we don't have to say something. Many times we say the wrong thing, and the wrong thing is very, very hurtful. In the beginning of Yitzi's illness, there was this man that was a good friend of my husband's, and he was constantly telling me, I promise you, Dina, everything is going to be all right. And after hearing that for like a year, I finally said to him, what are you talking about? He says, well, you know, in a couple of years, you'll find somebody new. And like, oh my God, the fact that you think that that's all right, that's not really, and he really meant well. And I sometimes joke about writing a book called But They Meant Well. It's not always better to say something than to not say something. Sometimes it's good enough to look at somebody and just acknowledge that I see you. I see you, I see that you're in pain, and I see that you're still trying, and that's amazing. Without patting somebody on the back in a difficult way, you know, like in a patronizing type of way. Even like when we go for a Shiva visit, we're not supposed to start a conversation. We're supposed to wait until they start a conversation. And we even have words that Hashem prepared for us that we're supposed to say, because it's not really our job to go in there and speak away somebody else's pain. It doesn't work like that. And one of the things that I wrote about recently is people tend to tell me a lot. A miracle can come in the blink of an eye. Don't worry, Mashiach is coming. Hashem is good. These are all true. They're all true, and they're all not helpful. Because I know that, but right now, this is difficult. And instead of saying, this world has so much pain and hardship in it, I'm going to work harder to actually bring Mashiach. What you're saying is, I don't really want to see your pain right now, so I'm just going to Mashiach it away, right? Like, I don't want you to ever not hope for Mashiach. That's not what I'm saying. But that's not meant to be something that your personal savior for your difficulties, right? We're supposed to go through our challenges. We're supposed to acknowledge how hard they are. We're supposed to do our best and still rely on Hashem. So I want to just, one thing about a connection to Hashem, and then we'll open it up to some questions. Faith is a really interesting thing. I don't think faith is like the same all the time. And I don't think we are the same all the time. There's this story of this girl many years ago in Russia. And she used to go out to the woods to daven, to pray to God. And her father said, why do you go out to the woods? God is the same here or there. And she says, yes, I know that, but I'm not the same. So we sometimes are more connected to our own spirituality, to our own faith, to ourselves. And at that time, I believe we are very strongly connected to Hashem. And the times where we are not in touch with our own spirituality, we're obviously not in touch with God as well. And there is like this emotion that happens sometimes when we become numb. I don't know if it's an emotion. It's something that happens when we become numb. And numb is really not when you stop feeling everything. Numb is when everything is too huge and you can't afford to feel any of it. And the thing about being numb is you're cut off from the painful feelings, you're cut off from the positive feelings, you're cut off from the blessings, you're cut off from yourself, and you're cut off from God. But it's scary to feel everything. So I wanna just encourage us all to take courage in your life. Acknowledge those difficult things. Know that it's 9 days, and this Shabbos is Shabbos Nachamu, the Shabbos of consoling. This is when things turn around and things begin to be upbeat again, and the blessings are more apparent. But don't numb yourself. Don't numb yourself from your emotions. Don't numb yourself to your godliness, to God. Life is not necessarily easier when you are connected to God. It's not like if you do everything right, God will take away all your challenges. Yet it's easier to go through life with that connection. And it gives purpose to your life. You're able to find throughout the pain in your life where you can make a purpose in it and not turn it into suffering. And really, that's what we want to do. We want to end the suffering and live a life as wholesome and purposeful as we can, where we are there for our families, where we have a strong bond with God. And we have to nourish the actions that get us there and diminish the things that bring us, like, that are not so good for us. Stop numbing ourselves with food or alcohol or social media or whatever it is, Netflix, whatever it is that we're doing, and start feeling again. And even if you find yourself crying, those tears will stop at a certain point, and then you'll be able to feel really the joy in your life. And we all have so much joy in our life. We really do. We have to just focus on it. And then we'll see it for what it is. So many blessings that we have. And I hope that in the next couple of months, we're all surprised by, like, I guess we were all surprised by the sudden change of the world, how it can change so drastically. But that means that it can also change drastically for the good. And I want to give us all a prayer as we go through Tisha B'Av and we go into the next week, that all of the tragedies, we finish crying for the tragedy, that God wipes the tears away from our face and shows us beautiful, healthy, peaceful times to live in, where we can all leave our houses, hug one another, visit our grandkids, take those vacations, and really live a good and purposeful life in the next coming months. Thank you. Rachel, you want to start with the questions?
Yes, thank you, Dina. I'm sure we're all joined together in saying how speechless we are. You're a gifted speaker, and thank you for your honesty, your sincerity and bravery, and you're so positive. And I think tonight you trusted us to share the deepest parts of your life, and we thank you for that. We will continue the conversation, but first I wanted to take a moment to thank Rabbi Sendi and Rachel Dubrowski from Lubavitch of Radlett for hosting this evening and coordinating this evening with all the tremendous presence of all the Chabads across the UK, and it's really special, so thank you to them. And a big thank you to Rabbi Pink for his assistance. I also wanted to welcome Rabbi Hurwitz. I noticed that Rabbi Yitzi is here with us tonight. And
I did not know that.
Yes, and I was just thinking when you were speaking about Corona, how special that is that he's actually able to be here and hear you speak. That must be something that's really special for him and now special for you. And that was really moving to me to see him just with such joy as you were speaking. So I wanted to
well, maybe when we finish with the questions, I can bring you into his room so that you can all say hi to him.
Oh, okay, well, that's special. And it's just amazing because you are really a model of resilience, Dina. When you listen to you and when you look at the way that you speak about your life with such paradoxes, it's clear that there's a mix of tremendous hardships from the condition that you and your family are in and all the challenges that brings you and your family. But at the same time, you described the situation with the Farbrengen, where you had this joy and inspiration that was happening with this Farbrengen. But at the same time, you had the real dilemma of finding the right words to speak to your children and your family. And I'm sure that's just one of many, many examples which on a daily basis, life has put you not in this situation. We don't get put in our situations as we find ourselves in these situations, but you've really risen to this challenge and you found the beauty, and it's just been really inspiring to hear you speak about that.
Thank you.
I'm sure we can all appreciate it. So
Thank you.
Dina, you're clearly a woman of strength. You're not just a strong woman. And as we sit here listening, most of us can wonder how it would be if this was our everyday. Do you think a person is born with this inner strength and positive outlook, or if someone has a negative outlook, do they have the ability to change?
So both, actually. So my husband is by nature a very positive person. And I, by nature, I'm not a negative person. I'm not quite as positive as him. And I am more sensitive than he is. So things affect me stronger. And I don't know if it's maybe more of a male thing than a female thing, the ability to compartmentalize things and just put them out of your mind a little bit. I'm not really able to do that as well, especially when it comes to my children. But I definitely have learned tools. And I think that we can all, through practice, learn how to be more resilient and happier in general. You know, when Yitzi did get sick, before he got sick, he would always buy me these books on happiness. You know, and I would tell him all the time, you know, yeah, I know the reasons that we should be happy. I know all the reasons. I just don't know where the button is to press. Like, okay, so now I'm happy, right? How does that work? So, but then when he got sick, I realized that, you know, for according to the doctors, and actually it's been like 7.5 years now, but we only had 1.5 years left, according to what we were told. And what kind of years are they going to be? And I know that if it was just me, I would be curled up in the corner crying. But it's not just me. I have children and my husband who loves to be happy. Could I create happiness? Could we have a happy life? And I did certain things to increase happiness levels in our house. And I do have to say, for the most part, they worked. I'm still not by nature a happy person, yet there is a lot of happiness around all the time. We have a lot of music in our house. Like I'm currently looking at 2, 5, 7 guitars right now. There's a lot of music and a keyboard, and music really it does bring joy, which is why like we don't do it at certain times, but music is wonderful. I try to have in mind, like when I'm arguing with my children, which sometimes happens, like a 5-year plan. Is this going to matter in 5 years? Will this discussion make any difference in our life? And if not, I don't have to be right. I'd much rather have peace in the house and let them think that I'm ill-informed of current events or whatever it is. It doesn't matter. I don't have to be right all the time. So like this really helps. There's less arguing. There's less fighting. And also I came to the conclusion that although I can pull off sophisticated for like an hour at a time, once a month maybe, but in general, I'm kind of a dorky person and just really embrace it and not like put this pressure on myself to be something that I'm not and to be silly. And I think these are things that help you with happiness. Like we don't have to imagine ourselves to be like so straight-laced and it's okay to be silly, especially with the kids. And there are tools that you can pick up to help you be resilient and to help you be happy if you were not you know, born with it, which is just a gift if you were born with it.
Well, it clearly looks like it's something that you have refined and worked hard on, and I think
I'm still trying.
Well, life is all about each day as progress, and I think that love is really not always being right. Love is about the fact of being able to find space for other people, and that's something that you speak about. And I think humor is really important. I find it funny that you said Yitzi used to use a Scottish accent, because being married to a Scottish person, I'm always trying to get rid of the Scottish accent, and I find that funny, but it's great. And it's clear that Yitzi is your best friend and soulmate. And I recently heard you speak at the Guinness a few years ago, how each morning he plays you a beautiful message of friendship that uplifts you. How do you keep that strong sense of connection when the actual communication is more limited? And what words of wisdom can you give us tonight to connect with the loved ones in our life?
Okay, so first I'll just tell you a little bit about that. Yitzi's able to text message me from his computer. And the very first thing he wrote on his computer, he was in the hospital. It was right after he had the operation for the trach, and he was just learning how to use this computer. And it took him quite a few hours. And he said, he wrote me this message: "Good morning, Dina, my love. I'm sorry that you're tired," because I always am. "I love you and I appreciate you more than words." It took him hours to write this. And now he does it really fast, and he sends it to me as a text message. Most mornings, sometimes he changes it up a little here or there. I think it's important to acknowledge a couple of things. We have tools at our disposal that we don't use because we always imagine we can do it tomorrow. So we have to stop living like there's a tomorrow. Sometimes there are people in our life that we love and we never tell them that. There are people in our life that we appreciate and we never tell them that. We figure we can do it another time. Don't do it another time. Do it today. It's not going to take you 2 hours to write it or say it. Just say it. Turn to the person that drives you more crazy than anybody else in the world and tell them how much you appreciate them and how much you love them and how much them being in your life makes your life better. At the same time, I want to recognize that all marriages have ups and downs, and mine is not immune to that. It's even more challenging without this ability to connect, right? And we have to be very creative, and creative costs a lot of, you need energy for that, and we're all a little bit low on energy. But there is something to be said. Like Shabbos, Yitzi does not use his computer, and to be able to just look at somebody, just look at them. You don't even have to say anything. Look at their eyes and see how they're doing. Right now, we all have our phones. We're on 150,000 WhatsApp groups. We have Facebook and Instagram and whatever else, emails and all. And we're always asking people how they're doing, but we never really know when they say, thank God, what is the word that follows thank God, right? Because we're not looking at them, we're not paying attention. We're just, it's different when it's done by electronics. We have to take the time to see each other, to look into each other's eyes, and when you ask somebody how they're doing, to really like pay attention to their answer. I'm not saying that you have to do it 24 hours a day with everybody, but the people that matter, we should do that to the people that matter. We should let them know that they matter to us, and we're going to see them even if we worry about what we're going to see in their eyes, even if it's hard, even if we're going to see pain in their eyes. And at the moment, we feel so full of it ourselves that we can't afford one more bit of pain. Let me tell you something. You could. I'm not saying that we should just fill ourselves up with pain, but we should fill ourselves up with love. And this is a loving thing to do. See the people in your life and how they're really doing, especially now. Look at them, talk to them, listen to them, really be like a witness for them, for their life, that they are safe to tell you how they are doing in their life, and you're safe to tell them as well, to be able to really be there for each other and to see each other for who we are.
Okay, well, it's clear that you are a woman of compassion. And I was reading through your blog, which is called The Caffeinated Thinker, and I thought those words are very appropriate because you mentioned about the fact of being an insomniac and staying up long through the night. And I think, firstly, on your blog, you write about the fact that so many of us have lost the connection to who we really are. We've been worn down by our challenges, and we are surviving on autopilot, but not really living. So take the time to connect to your own soul and God, and for in that connection is the whole world. Let's stop surviving and start living. So how do you actually find this ability, Dina, to be compassionate with others when their situation doesn't seem as severe as yours?
Okay, so first of all, I think surviving is a wonderful thing, because if we didn't survive, there would be no future. But I don't think it's enough. At a certain point, we have to stop surviving and really start thriving. And some of us got so used to being in survival mode. And if that is all that's keeping you going, then good for you. You just survive. But one day, when you are able to breathe, stand up, and breathe and remind yourself of the dreams that you had and the things that you really wanted to do, to live. I do think that I limit my interactions with people because I know it affects me. So previously I would travel and I would give a talk, and after the talk, I would hear a lot of stories of people and the loss that they've had and the challenges that they have to deal with currently in their life. And I would go home and cry for days, because they're sad. People have a lot of pain. And for a few days, I would hide from the world, and then I would find myself again and do it again, because I think it's important. Not everybody could do it, but we all need somebody that can hear us, not judge us, not try to fix us, just listen to us. And I know how much I appreciate the people that do that in my life. If I could do that for somebody else, it's my honor. But I do know the cost of it, and the cost is a few days of downtime. And that's okay. If that's what is needed, know yourself, don't be harsh on yourself. And do what you have to do to recharge, but to be open to other people in the world. And I get it that not everybody is made like that, and the world needs everybody. You know, I'm not gonna figure out how to conduct electricity or how to, I'm not even gonna figure out how to organize my kitchen today, but like there are other people. This is something that I can do, and I do it. I do it to the best of my ability, and I think we all can do a little better sometimes. But we also shouldn't. I don't even know. My mother told me of this saying once: sometimes you make yourself like a doormat so people can wipe their feet on you. We don't need to be a doormat, but we do need to be good friends to each other. And I think that's something we can all do.
So, Dina, when you speak about that, you do instill people with a big feeling of hope. I think your whole message resonates with this idea of hope, which was the theme of tonight. And I recently heard a talk by Dr. Edith, who wrote Sophie's Choice, and she speaks about the fact that expression is the opposite of depression. And what comes out of a person's body doesn't make them ill, but what they stay inside does. And both Yitzi and you have mastered this art of blogging, with you being the caffeinated thinker and Yitzi spending tremendous time in this fashion of writing each week. Have you noticed that the writing has changed you and your husband's life, and any inspirational feedback that you've received? Because clearly you work both hard on this. So what's
right.
your...
So I'll be honest with you, that as I moved more towards public speaking, I write less because I share it already in my talks. Yitzi, on the other hand, he writes consistently, and his dream in life was to teach Torah. And the fact that he has not lost his dream, that he's able to do it even on a grander scale than he was before, actually gives him a purpose in life. And when they talk about what are the factors that allow somebody to live past what the doctors think is their designated lifespan, it's having a passion, it's having a purpose. And this is Yitzi's purpose, and he has a very strong purpose, and it's incredibly rewarding for him to know that he's still doing exactly what he always wanted to his whole life. Of course, he also wanted to play baseball with the kids and to hug and kiss them and dance at their weddings and everything. I'm not saying that, but this is a purpose that he has, that he can still do, and it allows him to have a productive life, right? He still has so much value in this world. My writing is more emotional than his. His is very intellectual, and I get a lot of feedback from people all over the world going through their difficulties that found some sort of solace in the words that I wrote. And what I think is that if we're able to help somebody, if we're able to be there for somebody else, then we are taking our pain and using it for a purpose. And at this point, that's all we could hope for, because just random pain that has no purpose is a lot more painful than if you could find something worthwhile out of all of this pain.
Well, you should continue speaking and definitely continue writing, because I thought both of them were clearly inspiring, just between tonight and between all your readings. And do you know, earlier tonight, Dina, when you mentioned about the fact that sometimes when you're in a public setting, it gets very overwhelming. And as people are meaning well and trying to give comfort, sometimes it can almost make you feel isolated and alone. And you spoke tonight about the fact that people should be thriving and not just surviving. So that is our goal in life, to be successful and to be happy, as you speak about. And you write in one of your blogs that this life that we all get to live is our journey set out to us by God to reach a destination that only He knows. And I assume that you mean the fact that we really think we know what's best for us, but really sometimes God knows even better than. And often I think that you see in life where you have a situation where somebody next to you has something that you think would be better for yourself, or people have things that you may want, or you're in a situation where there are people who are deep in suffering, or experiencing bad days, but meanwhile next to them there's others who are obliviously going about their seemingly happy lives, and it can be painful. Do you have any words of suggestions or advice on how to find the balance between sharing other people's happy times, but not causing pain to others? And on social media in general, we live such a life, as you mentioned, with social media, where we're asking people what's going on, or people are portraying with statuses what their life is really about in 30 words, or with a picture, but really there's a whole deeper level that's going on. How can we share the positive parts with compassion and be careful not to hurt others?
So first of all, when somebody puts something out on social media, it's really like our choice if we want to read it or not. You know, like they should be able, if they have wonderful things happening in their life, even if, let's say, they have a million horrible things and one wonderful things, and that's what they choose to share, that's fine. It's not for us to, like, we really, like, we could just move past it. We don't have to read it. We don't have to get offended. We don't have to take it personally, whatever. That's our choice. We don't even have to be on social media. Like, and there are days where I feel like we are all so fragile at certain days that, like, you know, you should probably limit yourself what you're going to see. And I do think that we should remind ourselves other people should be able to live. Chances are they actually are struggling with something. We just don't know it. And they don't have to share their struggles with everybody. But, like, I don't think we should just assume because somebody posted some happy pictures that their whole life is happy. Everybody's got a full life with some things in it that are wonderful and some things that are devastating, and not necessarily devastating the same, but still everybody has things in their life, and they should be able to celebrate the good when they want to. Yet I do think that there should be like a certain sensitivity. My son graduated elementary school this year, and it was a really interesting kind of socially distant graduation. There was like these squares on the floor with tape, and in each square was 3 seats, and there were these headphones on each seat so that the graduating kid and his mother and father can sit next to him and listen to it through headphones. So it wasn't like a loud event that would bother any of the neighbors or anything, because it was done outside, and every square was like 10 feet away from the other square. And the principal came over to me at a certain point and said, "Do you want me to move one of those chairs?" And like, I thought it was nice of her to acknowledge the awkwardness, but it was already there. And it would be even weirder for her to move it at that point. I do think, like, there is a certain part of you that you know is not the same as everybody else. And there are times where it's more awkward. You could be, but it's not like what you think. You could be driving in the car and look at the car next to you, and there's like a daddy singing with his kids, and all of a sudden my car becomes very quiet. Those are the moments more that are like challenging than the ones that people plan, like when you go somewhere. But you know, just, I don't know. Rachel, we were talking earlier. I went to a friend's wedding, and you know, I got my husband ready. It's really hard to get him into the wheelchair and everything. We were going to go to the chuppah, and we get him dressed and downstairs to the car, and guess what? The car's dead. And so we try to boost it, and it's not boosting. And I'm gonna miss the chuppah. She's like one of my very best friends. And so I said to my son, you know, see if somebody could help you boost it. I'll go to the chuppah, and if it gets fixed, we'll come back, and I'll get Yitzi, and I'll bring him. Well, it didn't get fixed, and he went back upstairs into bed. And here I am sitting at this wedding, at this table of people that are just really complaining how hard it was to find a babysitter. And I really, at that point, I felt like that was a little bit insensitive, because these are all people that know me well. But also I was really emotional about the whole day. And so I went to certain parts of the wedding. And then when, like, after about an hour and a half, when I found myself wanting to cry every time somebody came over to me, I left the wedding early. I apologized to the bride, which she totally got. I just didn't want to be the one crying at a wedding. And I really am happy for her. It was just a hard circumstance. And you know what, these things, they happen. And we just, I guess we cry a little, and then we try again next time.
Yeah, and I think that's an important message for us, because on a day-to-day basis, we have these moments where we never know what the next minute's going to bring. And I think COVID has really given us that ability to suddenly prioritize and realize what's important and what's not. And I think that you spoke about that when you said how in that year where you had that time with Yitzi, that you had this time to just live life to the fullest while he was more physically able before. And that sometimes the moments that you have now are the nightmare from a few years ago. But do you feel like now that we're living in COVID, is there any inspiration that you can give us for that message?
So this is something that I try to remember all the time. You know, this too shall pass. Nothing lasts forever. You know, there is going to be a time where the isolation of COVID will be finished. It's quite possible that the world will not be the same as it was before. And I think there's a lot of us who really are kind of mourning the loss of a life that they thought they were going to have, or the world that they thought. I mean, here in America, it feels like we're on the verge of a civil war over here. This is not like what I could have imagined a while ago. And that's all kind of devastating. It brings up anxiety, a lot of worry about the future. The only thing I can say is that God has a plan, which we do not know what it is, but we know that he has a plan. And knowing that he has a plan is of some consolation for me, as well as knowing that this isn't going to last forever, and seeing so far our track record as human beings is that we are extremely adaptable, and we will adapt to whatever it is. I'm not saying it will be perfect, it will be what we wanted it to be, but whatever it is, we'll adapt, and we'll find a way to live with meaning and to live with purpose and to have a full life in whatever we have in the future.
Thank you, Dina. I'm conscious of the fact that we're both in California now, and it's smack right in the middle of the day, and I'm sure that you have things to do, and we are very grateful to your time. Tonight, you have really inspired us, and everyone here on this gathering has the ability to just be uplifted by your message, and it's full of powerful and transformative teachings. It's clear that positive thinking can transform our lives by focusing on our blessings and the importance of listening more intently. You've spoken about putting others before ourselves and finding opportunities to take every challenge and turn it into prospects of growth. And we thank you so much for this wonderful chance of giving us new perspectives to help us as we turn the 9th of the day of mourning into redemption. Yitzi wrote the song before his diagnosis of ALS, and that song, Shine the Light, is precisely so poignant because it's within the cracked and broken where we can always find a ray of light and a glimmer of hope. And Yitzi's song is so beautiful and uplifting. It seems like the perfect mantra for life, and it could be our daily prayer to God to shine a little light, to show us the way, and to lead us to a brighter day. Dearest Dina, on behalf of all of us in attendance, we bless you with continued health and blessings, miracles for Yitzi, prosperity, peace of mind, and strength to continue to inspire so many worldwide, and more specifically to inspire Yitzi and your children. You have shined your light and lit us up tonight and sparked joy within us and left us so very bright. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to see if I can grab you guys to come say hi to my husband for a second before we all say goodbye. Is that all right?
Yes, we would love that.
Okay. Can we come in? Yeah. Oh, I hear myself on his computer. That's weird. Hold on a second here. Here we go. Hey.
Good evening, Rabbi Yitzi. It's a real honor that we're able to be here with you. And you're clearly the hero of this evening, and your wife has made you very proud, and we're so proud of her too. And thank you for both being with us tonight to share with us and to inspire us and to give us hope in this time of the 9 days of mourning.
It is our pleasure, and it's so nice to see everybody. And I hope everybody stays safe and healthy, and Tisha B'Av passes quickly and uneventfully, and we can move right past it into the wonderful days we have ahead of us.
Oh, thank you. Good evening. And thank you again, everybody, for joining us. It's been really special to have all of us here together, and wish you a good evening. And thank you to Rabbi Sandy and Rachel.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dina. Have a lovely day, and goodbye to you and Rabbi Yitzi.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for coming.